Completion anxiety. 3, 2, 1. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to episode 345 of the Shower Podcast, the podcast where I'm in my shower and you do you. I'm your host, Chip, and in the last episode, I told you about the time when I was trying to finish my master's degree, and the only thing between me and the diploma was my thesis. From the outside, it sounded simple. Sit down, write, get it done. Inside, though, it felt like the hardest part of the whole race. Before we start, as usual, if you end up liking this episode, remember the liking and subscribing really mean a lot for me. They're just one click, but they really make the difference. Thank you very much for considering it. I was exhausted and stuck, almost allergic to opening that document, even though finishing it would unlock everything I'd worked for. Maybe you know that feeling. You get most of the way through a degree, a project, a move, and suddenly the last part feels heavier than the whole path before. Tonight, I want to stay with that moment and explore why the final stretch can feel like a wall instead of a door. Psychologists actually have a name for this kind of moment. They call it an action crisis. The phase in a goal where you've already invested a lot of time and energy, but obstacles and doubts pile up and you feel torn between pushing on and walking away. Instead of just working on the goal, you start working on the question, should I even keep going? And that question quietly drains your energy. Studies show that in an action crisis, the goal that once felt exciting now feels heavy. Its appeal drops and anxiety and self-doubt shoot up. When you add procrastination, it gets even stickier. A large review by Pierre Steele found that we procrastinate more when a task feels unpleasant, the reward is distant, and we doubt our abilities to succeed. So, if that last chapter or final exam feels strangely impossible, your brain is not failing you. It is reacting to a pattern that science knows very well. There is another layer to this. Some psychologists talk about completion anxiety, the tension that shows up right before finishing, especially when the task feels tied to your identity or future. It often comes from fear of failure, fear of being judged, or, most importantly, fear that the final result will not live up to the idea you had in your head. As long as the work is unfinished, you can still tell yourself, I could turn this around. Once you hand it in, it becomes real and it can disappoint. Positive psychology also talks about the arrival fallacy, the illusion that once you finally reach a big goal, you'll feel lasting happiness and wholeness. Some part of you senses that this promise might be false, that life after the thesis or the promotion will still be messy and uncertain. So your mind quietly resists crossing the finish line because finishing means saying goodbye to the fantasy of how it was all supposed to feel. So, what do you do to all of this? First, you name it. You're not lazy. You might simply be in an action crisis wrapped in completion anxiety. When you can say, of course this feels hard, my brain is trying to protect me, you create just enough distance to move anyway. Then, you shrink the finish line. Studies on procrastination and anxiety suggest that breaking the last stretch into tiny concrete action lowers the emotional weight. Instead of finish the thesis, it becomes open the file and write a messy paragraph. Work on that, not on the whole mountain. Motivation research also shows that we do better when a goal feels close and personally meaningful, so small deadlines and a clear picture of life after you finish can quietly pull you forward. And through all of it, talk to yourself like you would talk to a friend. The point of the thesis or project is not to prove your worth. It is simply to be done so you can live the next chapter. So, If you're sitting in front of your own unfinished thing right now, feeling that strange rejection from something you once wanted, remember that you're human. Standing at the edge of a finish line, that actually matters. Take one tiny step anyway, and you'll see that step by step, it will get fixed. Having said that, that was all for today. Thank you very much for listening. Hope you enjoyed this deep dive into a problem that everybody we know faced, maybe ourselves, maybe others. And I hope that it gave you the information necessary to actually deal with it. If you made it so far, thank you very much for listening. Feel free to interact with this content in any way, shape, or form you like, by liking, sharing, commenting, subscribing. Whatever works for you, works for me. And, as usual, stay consistent, stay resilient. This was the Shower Podcast, and I'll see you tomorrow.